think we will get started. I think we've got maybe one or two just coming in at the back, but that is okay. So first off, we'll start with the formalities. For those that don't know me, which is pretty much everybody, my name is Ben Hussey. This session is about inventory, but we're going to get into that in a bit more detail. But it's the inventory isn't optional, the advisory skill your clients are counting on. So everyone got breakfast, coffee? Everyone got everything they need? Okay, so first off, thank you for being here in this early morning breakfast session. When opening a presentation, the advice often is to tell a joke, to make a bold statement or say something provocative. And so today, we're going to talk about how AI is going to take all of our jobs. Something I suspect you've all heard, right? Provocative statement. And judging by the laughter, I think you have heard that one. And of course, that's not the topic today. But the philosophy is actually similar, because what we are talking about is what are the roles going forward? What is the job of an accountant, a bookkeeper? What do we want that to be, and how best to do it? So, as an accountant, I assume no one here is or wants to be a data entry clerk, or a troubleshooter, a firefighter. Maybe you are today, but hopefully not. But regardless of AI or anything else, what do you want it to be? And most people will say that an accountant should be a strategic advisor. Sound about right? I'm guessing because you're in the room, that's kind of the aim. Why? Why do you want to do that? Well, you want to offer more value to your clients. You probably want to charge them more, because you can usually do that if you put the word strategy into a title. That usually ends up costing more money. And so the missing piece, of course, is what we're going to talk about. And in the theme of the show, we're going to talk about how to make it so. A couple of admin things. Did everyone scan their badge on the way in? Okay. Through the next 50 minutes, you will get your 1 hour credit. I don't think there's a requirement about staying awake, but if you could, that would be awesome. In terms of the other admin, there is a survey at the end. So after the session, actually later today, when you're caffeinated, when you've had a really good day, when you're happy and effusive, that's a great time to take the survey. It's pretty straightforward. You just answer best ever for everything, and we're good to go. Okay, so as I said at the beginning, my name's Ben. I do work at Katana Cloud Inventory. So we are a SaaS software provider. And what we do is help small and medium-sized businesses that sell physical product to buy, make, sell the right raw materials, the right finished product to the right people at the right time. So we are an inventory management system. And what we are going to do, and I have to read through all the learning objectives, is cover these main topics. So first off, inventory is often thought of as an operational thing, something that happens in the warehouse, right? Something we don't really need to worry about too much, but it is actually a financial issue. And so what often happens, one of the big challenges we see and ultimately help people with, is that operations and finance are often disconnected. There's a few different reasons for this, which I'll cover. But what it does is it leaves accountants and bookkeepers unable to reconcile the numbers often, but at best, the reconciliation is happening after decisions are being made. And of course, this type of approach means that errors are made, trust usually gets eroded, time is spent. And so what we're going to do is empower accountants and bookkeepers to move from reactive troubleshooting to proactive insights. We're going to talk about how inventory visibility will lead to downstream financial inaccuracies if you don't have it, and how you can shift from troubleshooting the problems that come with that into delivering the real-time insights and visibility. We are going to explore how digitization and cloud-based platforms like Katana can integrate the operational and financial data. So QuickBooks is obviously the big one, but there are others too. So how you can automate the journal entries, improve costing accuracy, enable real-time decision-making. And so whether you're an advisor who focuses on not small things, but specific things, cash flow, profitability, growth, understanding inventory management, is going to make you a more strategic advisor. And I'm going to give some examples and some case studies from some of our customers and some accounting partners of ours as well. In hindsight, the agenda slide probably should have been earlier, but why is inventory a financial issue? We'll cover that. How inventory insight will evaluate the strategic role. I'm going to talk a bit about how this actually kind of manifests in real world, and the impact that you can get from it. So again, a couple of kind of case studies or examples, because oftentimes with inventory, what we hear is it's hard, and it can be a kind of, it's obviously a real thing, but it can be quite nebulous in terms of how it shows up for businesses. And people can sometimes struggle with kind of putting action together and actually making some change happen. So we're going to try and make it a little bit interactive, as it is an early morning session. There will be a few questions as we go, but you should leave the session hopefully with a better idea of inventory management, strategic edge. You can, of course, talk to us, and I'll tell you where to find us later today. And hopefully you'll have a bit of an edge over the people that stayed out too late at the bar last night and couldn't make it. So, why is inventory a financial issue? So, in a room full of accountants and bookkeepers, I kind of hope that you already know that inventory impacts the bottom line in a business. That should be a pretty fundamental thing. Inventory, typically, largest asset a small, medium business has. So, one, hopefully you're familiar, but the context, of course, is the evolving role. And I think the start of this year, and who knows what's to come, but has taught us with tariffs and various other things that this is perhaps even more relevant today than it would have been 6 months ago, even. So, I think it's probably fair to say, but shake your head if you disagree, that clients and businesses are looking to you for more than just compliance and more than just reporting. Right? They are asking you questions. How do I? What do I do when? What should I be thinking about? And those are the types of questions, of course, that you want to be able to answer. Inventory is often a blind spot for companies. If you think of a small, medium-sized business, they're busy. Hopefully, they're growing. But what are the main things they're looking at doing is usually sales, right? Business owners typically will focus on the revenue side of things. They will often kind of have someone else solve that problem or that inventory problem or operational things. And they tend not to have the visibility to what's actually happening. So we have a customer a few weeks ago. One of our accounting partners brought them to us. We got them set up on Katana. And a couple of weeks after getting set up, we actually had a call with them just to see how things were going. And they said that they had found $40,000 worth of inventory they didn't know they had. It's just because they were counting it properly. And it sounds like the simplest of things, but if you think of companies, particularly manufacturing companies, who maybe are a bit more traditional in their approach, using paper, pen, even Excel, the actual basics of counting and knowing what you have, where you have it, at any given moment can be challenging. And it's that disconnection that's the problem. Right? So you can have, maybe it's one warehouse, maybe you have many. Maybe you do have QuickBooks set up, right? So you've got your financials in a QuickBooks or Xero or something. But because the information's not connected between the two, you have this problem. One of them is that just a basic timing thing. You can be in a situation where you're doing inventory counts maybe it's perhaps a month, reconciling month end, but what you'll often find, and I will ask shortly, is that the data doesn't match. Right? What you see and what's on in the Excel or on the bit of paper aren't lining up. And so the problem with this, of course, is that it can lead to delays in reporting. You can get inaccurate COGS information, which, of course, makes it hard to run a business, because then, what should I be charging people? How much money am I making or losing? The big one we see that we help with a lot is overstocking and understocking. And that's the fundamental problem when you get down to inventory is if you're overstocked, you've got money on the warehouse shelf. And increasingly today, what we see is successful growing companies do not want to be overstocked. We used to call it just in time, but effectively that's what we're talking about. People don't want to have money on the shelf because they can't guarantee that what they thought they were going to sell next month is what they're actually going to be selling next month. The market's changing very rapidly. The other side of that, of course, is understocking. So obviously, if you sell through, you've got more demand than you can supply, then you're leaving money on the table. And those are the two big problems that we really see with poor inventory. Now, because we work with companies who do reselling and drop shipping, where they're not making their own product but store it, we work with manufacturers who are making their own product. They bring in raw materials. We see varying degrees of these types of problems because, of course, it does depend on your complexity and your product mix. If you're someone with thousands of SKUs because you're manufacturing lots of products, that's going to become a much more intense and complicated problem than someone who's just reselling 3 things they're basically getting from a drop shipper or something. Fundamental problem, though, still the same. Inventory, of course, does touch every financial statement. So if it's poorly tracked, then you all are left to clean up the mess. I don't think there's many business owners that will sit down and get all the scraps of paper out or receipts and things and start counting through them. It usually gets handed off to the accounting team. And then, of course, if you do understand the operational side, then it does ultimately reduce the headaches, end-of-month surprises, and reconciliation problems. Again, typically business owners will, if there's a problem, it's generally not necessarily their problem, it's usually someone else's. And in an accountant's world, that often will mean yours. So, I'm supposed to throw this thing at people, which I'm not entirely confident with, mainly because of the coffee and things. So, but I will perhaps wander around. But this is a question I would like to ask. I'm sure you've already by now, but how confident are you in the accuracy of your client's data at month end? So before we do this, why don't we do a show of hands? Who is 100% confident in their client's data? Excellent. It's just because I got something to throw at you. You knew you couldn't say 100%. Anyone who got 50%, you can just throw up your hands, because this is, anyone for kind of 50%-ish? Yeah, anyone worse than 50%? Yeah, okay. Anyone, so somewhere, actually that's worse than I thought. So if we'll say most of you in there, let's call it 75%-ish range, give or take 25%. It's pretty terrible, right? And that's the problem. Is the reality we see. I won't bother with this. It's the problem we see for lots of people is that it's such a fundamental issue. Imagine if you're 50% off on your count of inventory for an inventory business. It's crazy. Like your cost of goods, your P&L, your asset, your balance sheet, all of that stuff is just massively out. As a business owner, how can you possibly make confident decisions about what you should do? And as I mentioned earlier, we'll talk about it, but like you think about tariffs and how quickly things can be changing right now, that problem gets amplified so much. Again, the main fundamental problem here is the inaccuracy of the data, the lack of the real-time availability of data. That is actually one of the big problems we see. I've got to do it. I'll get in trouble if I don't. The session's being recorded, so we have to.
How about clients that don't think it's a big deal when their inventory is negative? Right?
I'm not even sure I know how to answer that one. I don't know. Can you say smack them? So actually it's a great question, because one of the things that often we find is that you have to show them the problem and what it means to them ultimately, right? And so that's kind of what we're talking about today, because if the negative inventory is on paper or in an Excel or someone's head, they can't visualize that into what it really means, the impact for them. But for most business owners, if you put that on a picture, right, and you show them something that says, hey, did you know that you are losing X dollars a month, or you are putting, whatever it is, X dollars a month that you're not making because of this, I think ultimately that's the way you have to go, and what we're looking to achieve here is those insights. You're turning the data information into that knowledge and ultimately wisdom, I suppose, as to what, if you don't do this, this is the problem that's going to happen. And it's that future projection that I think business owners will respond to, because you're absolutely right. Believability is often a challenge, and the only way you can ultimately show them is. So I guess I suppose I am somewhat biased given what I do for a living, but we definitely believe that one of the keys here is to get the right data, get it automated so that the reporting is done for you, and it's accurate. The basics of the accounting function are automatically done, so you are freed up to then take that information per the question and then put that into the insights and the storytelling for that client to say, this is what we're seeing, this is what it means, and this is what will happen if you don't take whatever action that you want to take. So I'm going to read the quote, assuming I can see it. But people still try to manage a lot manually, inventory, accounting, production planning. If you want us to help you, it has to be online. So automating, computerizing, and moving our clients to paperless office is our main goal. This is one of our partners. Who here has clients that still use paper? Who has fax machines still? That's always the one. Paper. What about Excel? Lots of Excel, I suspect. Yeah, I put Excel into the same category as paper. I know it does the math really well, but it doesn't do things in real time because it will only respond to what you can put in there. It also doesn't tell you anything in terms of insights. It can tell you 2 + 2 = 4, but it can't then turn that into an overall picture. And typically Excel's missing data from other places, and it misses the ability to kind of put things together. Again, it can do the math, but what it can't do is have it all in a connected story. So we have a number of different partners. Raymond's is one of them. I suspect you've heard of them, some of you. And so we have a number of others, but we have a case study from them, and I think this quote's actually from that. So we do have on our website, katanamrp.com, a full case study section. It has customers of ours, and it has partners. So we have partner case studies where we've got partners that tell their story of how they have got success with their customers using our technology, of course, but the principles apply anywhere. And then customer case studies with real-life examples. These are good for if you're talking to your clients and you want to say, hey, I want to move you off paper, I want to move you off Excel, and this is why. These are case studies you are free to use if you would like to. You can use them just as examples, show your customers, as clients, as to why it's a good idea. Okay, what clients expect from advisors today? Does anyone disagree with these statements, actually? I'm just going to change how I'm going to do things. I'm feeling adventurous. Proactive guidance on pricing, cash flow, inventory planning. Anyone massively disagree with that one? Real-time insights, not just end-of-month reports. Has anyone ever got the phone call, what should I do about X? Answer me now. I suspect you get that a lot from your clients. Strategic support through uncertainty. Great, that's a very vague statement, but tariffs are going up 50% tomorrow, what do I do? What does it mean to me? Those are the types of things that more and more we're seeing. I suspect you are experiencing. And of course, if you're prepared and you have the knowledge and you can look in something that will tell you those answers immediately or pretty close to immediately, we think you're going to have a strategic advantage over others who cannot do that. The key, obviously, from the conversation is the digitization and computerization. And so we'll talk about how we do this. So how can inventory insight power your strategic advantage? So what we see is successful firms, accountants, bookkeepers, evolve and shift from that reporting and compliance function and work to provide advisory and visibility into the business operations. So not just the P&L balance sheet, the financial side, but they're actually going kind of back into the business and looking into the operations to see the areas of efficiency, opportunity, and provide the guidance on that, not just on the you're going to make or lose this much money every month, or your cash flow is going to run out X. Those are all very useful things, don't get me wrong. But if you can extend that back into the, hey, did you know that if you reduced your inventory by this much or turned it over this much quicker, that would then translate into this much more money? That's a much better story, or at least it's a good addition to that story. So one of the things we see, and I think there's a couple of actually our partners in the room who see this a lot, but businesses and that manufacture in particular, or those that hold lots of inventory, they often rely on multiple systems to hold that information. They might have like a system in one warehouse, and then their other supplier has a different system. They have a different warehouse somewhere else that has something. Head office has Excel or paper. So lots of different areas, possibly both manual and software tracking. And of course, this creates lots of inefficiencies and increases the likelihood of errors because there's no automated way of moving that data across those different types of approaches. And so this kind of fragmented approach makes it difficult for you to provide timely and accurate insights, because if you're running around having to gather information from all these different places that aren't connected, or provided to you in some cases, I suspect, then of course it makes it really difficult to get to those insights. So one of the things we often talk about, and we won't have time to get into all the detail on this day, is that kind of health check with the business owner, first understanding where all the information is. I would hazard a guess, and Matt, I'll ask you, one of our partners, but how many business owners know where all of their information is? Not many, right? Yeah. Matt spends most of his time when he's working with customers just on figuring out what data they have and where it is, because most business owners and operations, they just don't know what they have and where to get it from. So actually, whether you use Katana or anyone else, the first step is always just to do a bit of a kind of a health check on, okay, where is the information? Where does it exist? I would recommend getting that into one place, because if you have it in lots of places, the problem's going to perpetuate, and it will just get worse over time, particularly with a scaling business. It will just get harder and harder. First step, get it into one place, and please don't let that be paper or Excel. We have a bias, of course, to us, but if it's not us and someone else, we'll say that's okay too. So that's always the first step. Get that clear picture of the financial help, and then from there, you can get to that real-time visibility. And I keep saying real-time visibility because, and I think today especially, if you wait until month-end reconciliation, which is rarely at month-end, it's usually a couple of weeks into the next month, then of course you're probably behind already. One of the other things we see with this challenge, lack of real-time visibility, is providing meaningful recommendation and decision-making quickly is a challenge. So one of the problems we also hear about is a business owner will say, I want to understand, what's happening with this. And the accountant says, great, I'll go look into it, and comes back two weeks later with an answer. And again, business owners generally are expecting a much quicker turnaround on the answers to their questions and troubleshooting decision-making. So audience question time. Are your accounting systems capturing operational activity in real time? These questions aren't good for talking, they're yes or no questions. So does anyone have a story about this question? Anyone have an actual problem that they can relate to the room? Of a challenge they've had? That can include us as well, our partners. All right, well then, whose accounting systems are capturing operational activity in real time? So whose accounting system at the end, any moment in the day can say, this many sales have happened, this many products have been shipped, built. No one's putting up their hand. That either means my question's terrible, or you have a really big problem. So I'm going to use a customer of ours.
Or 7 a.m.
Yeah, or 7 a.m., right? Haven't finished your coffee yet. That's fine. That's an okay answer. I'll take that one. I think that's probably better than the other two. So I'm going to give you an example. We have a customer called Mind Baseball. They make custom baseball bats. They recently got set up with Katana for inventory management. So in inventory management, because it's the product data, it's usually the source of truth for product information in terms of the count of inventory. So what you would then usually have is something like maybe Shopify for e-commerce. That's a typical one. And then obviously we'll use QuickBooks for the accounting. And so with those three kind of bits of software, most businesses can run pretty much everything they need from that. Now in the case of Mind Baseball, they also had Ship Theory, which is something they use for their kind of shipping and the way that they do shipping. Lots of people use that, different shipping options as well. So once they implemented, they figured out that they saved 30 hours a week on working in Excel. Not even talking about the difference it made to their inventory or their operations, their efficiency, their sales, none of that. Just literally someone was spending 30 hours a week in Excel moving numbers around. It's crazy. And so, and a software stack like that for a customer like this, we're talking, probably a couple thousand a month for everything, all in. So if you start to put the numbers on what your clients are actually doing, you can do that in time. How many hours are you spending in Excel or moving bits of paper around? And they'll probably say, oh, I've got some kid doing it. Great, how accurate is that? Then you look at accuracy, right? How many mistakes are getting made? How much information is missing? It's really easy, really quickly to get to a business case on the difference you can make by putting in. And that's why I use that quote from Raymond. That's actually one of the first things they do with all of their customers before they get into any advisory or any other work, is they always make sure, and they're looking to get their clients digitized, because it's the only way they can be assured that the information they're getting is up to date and accurate, so that they can actually make the right recommendations and decisions. And there obviously are some clients who are resistant to change and resistant to this type of approach. But we do find, consistently, this is the story we hear. It's actually, there's a lot of it is about time as well. Yes, it's all the big picture, strategic, accounting, accurate, all that stuff too. But time is a big thing. This case study is online as well, by the way. So there are lots of options for managing inventory. It's not just about us. It is just about us, but it's not just about us. There are, of course, traditional ERP solutions, something like a NetSuite, for example. Generally, those are for bigger clients. They do everything, all in one. So they'll do all the accounting, all the stuff together. And then there's other versions of those for small businesses, something like an Odoo, for example, that work with kind of usually sole proprietors, smaller companies. They have their place. What we hear often is that they can be a bit challenging to work with, and they often just don't give the customers what they need, because it's kind of all things for all people. Of course, in some cases, they work great, so I'm not going to say they don't. But those are one of the options. It's kind of an all-in-one that does everything. Other options are there are some other inventory management platforms, and some of them are at the show. So what we typically see with those is that they can be often a bit older, maybe on-premise type solutions. So on-premise basically means the software is not in the cloud. It's in a computer box under someone's desk. That presents a few challenges with things like access. So you can't have your people in the warehouse accessing that information, right? So, for example, with us, we have a shop floor app. So someone who's out in the warehouse and they're making something, as they're using the raw materials, they're putting that into Katana as they go. And then they're also putting in their hours. And that's how we give cost of goods sold. If you have an on-premise solution, you can't really do that unless you have computer boxes all over the warehouse floor, which gets pretty expensive and difficult to run. And so what we see more and more, and QuickBooks actually is, to some degree, going down this road as well, obviously with online, which I know can be a good or a bad thing, depending on your perspective, but regardless, is that more and more kind of shifting to what's called a best-of-breed type of approach. So, for example, if you're an online reseller, you're probably picking Shopify. You're not going to say that the NetSuite e-commerce capabilities are better than the Shopify ones, because they're not. And you might look at accounting and say, well, if I'm in the US, then the reality is that QuickBooks is going to be best for me because it has the best support and the best network out there. And so what we see often is that people go for a best of breed. They kind of pick the three technologies that work best for them based on their business, and that they want to make sure that they are integrated together. And that's one of the key things, is that they work together. So all those bits of software should have integrations to each other. So we have an integration to QuickBooks, we have an integration to Shopify, others, WooCommerce, BigCommerce, there's loads. But the point is they are interconnected systems. And when used together, I said those three, but then you can, you have a growing business, perhaps someone starts to run a B2B side or a wholesale side to their business, and they have salespeople on the street, so they put in something like a HubSpot, and they start to take orders through HubSpot. Great, you can just plug HubSpot into that ecosystem, and it will, again, provide the same thing. And so you see this kind of multi-channel aspect, right, where you have different channels of sales, all providing the sales information into the inventory system so that it can do all the counting. How many orders, what orders, etc. The other thing that becomes really important is actually that last point. Because in Katana, we have visibility to suppliers. So people have their suppliers in Katana, they can issue purchase orders. And so one of the things that's happening a lot now is with tariff changes and suppliers adjusting prices so quickly, it can be really hard to have visibility to what your cost base is. And so with a real-time, always-on system, you can go in and look up all my suppliers, all my costs, have those costs change, tariffs in particular, kind of changing the cost base as you go. Again, something you find very hard to do if you didn't have that real-time connected system. So what this all gives you: automatic journal entries, accurate inventory costing, real-time insights, get rid of the silos, the spreadsheets, and you can adapt to real-time changes. Wait, I've got to throw the thing to you. Okay, we're going to take the risk. Watch out. There you go.
Okay. So does Katana integrate with like Shopify directly, or is it only integrating with QuickBooks and then the other things integrate with?
Shopify directly.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah. So, and then there's different data sets that pass between all the different systems, because Shopify also integrates QuickBooks as well.
Okay, so it's a two-way connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Got
Yeah.
it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a two-way connection. And so we have lots of direct integrations and integrations that we've built. We also use partners like Zapier, Extensive Make that also do lots of other integrations that you can plug in as well. So, but yeah, it's a good question. The two-way sync is really important because it gives you the real time, right? Okay, 100 orders in from Shopify. What does that mean? It needs to degrade the inventory, and then that does the matching up on our side with the supply you have. Okay, next quote. Christine again. To get information moving from a website like Shopify into Katana, then into QuickBooks Online, makes it easier to get all that payment info with fewer errors and way more automation. Only then do you have the ability to analyze. If you have a customer that has just online sales, they're doing less than $1 million a month, and they're basically selling everything out of their shed in their backyard, you don't need to do all of this. They can run on Excel, most likely, or just Shopify. Shopify has basic capabilities for counting stuff. That would work fine. I suspect if it's a customer like that, you probably aren't working with them because they shouldn't be able to afford you. So if you are working with customers like that, then keep doing what they're doing and continue to do what you're doing because you're doing well. But as soon as we find that people get into a bit more complexity, and complexity is things like making the product themselves, right? So we have people that make, protein bars and baseball bats and all kinds of things. But if you're making something yourself, that's the kind of complexity because you've got multiple types of raw materials you're bringing in and using. Someone who's selling in lots of different channels, perhaps it's Shopify, but perhaps there's others as well. Maybe there's online, maybe there's retail. So any kind of multi-channel or omni-channel type of operation also is another big one. And then just scale. Right, there comes a point in time, and there's no kind of fixed number, but you get to a certain amount of revenue or transactions every day, and you just can't keep up with it manually. It's just you spend more time doing the counting than you do processing the orders. And so to get, we talked about the two-way, the sync between Shopify and Katana as an example, makes it easier to get all that information in, fewer errors, more automation, and then what you end up with is the one source of truth. And this is particularly important with omni-channel. So if you think of it like this, if you just have one website doing kind of one thing, let's say Shopify can do everything. But as soon as you have another one, Shopify's not going to know about it. And so now your inventory is off. Potentially you've got 10 orders coming in from this one and 10 from another. But unless you have something that's going to count both of them, you're not going to know your inventory. And so that's why we always refer to Katana as the source of truth, because it's I use the word lowest denominator, that sounds wrong, but it's that kind of lowest point of the tech stack. It has all of that data to feed up to as many other places as you want and do the counting across them all. And that's where the real kind of trick comes in for the inventory management side, on the demand side of things. Yeah. You also get then the shippers. So you get shipping data as an example, right? What's been shipped, what's the status of the shipping, all of that kind of information as well. So let's talk about impact, because usually this is the best way to have a conversation with your clients. So the impact of being able to do this is obviously guide the decision-making process. It's not just about the decision-making process, it is also identifying how to adapt and how to make differences in what you do, become more efficient, more effective. Deliver proactive, data-driven recommendations. That's always a good one. People like to say data-driven a lot. So yeah, this is obviously something you can do. And let's talk about how we do this. Okay. So this one was actually in the news recently, there's been a few cases like this where people are getting surprised in almost real time. And we'll use the tariffs because it's obviously been a big issue this year. Whether or not they've happened, the talk of them has made it a big issue. This is a real example. There's been a couple like this. There was someone who had the price of their materials changed when it was on the shipment over, right, and that completely messed, obviously, with their business. What we have seen across all of our customer base is a 30% increase in unit cost this year. It's not up here, it's not in my notes, but I just remember it because we're going to do interactive again. Someone guess what the increase in cost of goods sold in Q4 2024 was? So post-election. Increase in cost of goods sold, small, medium businesses, North America. It's actually global, but most of our customers are in North America. Who wants to have the box and take a guess? Fantastic, thank you. I'm going to try it. What do you think it was?
5%.
Okay, good guess. That will seem reasonable, right?
Yeah.
What else have we got? Someone put up their hand. I just want to see the box getting thrown behind you. That's the problem with the box.
I'll say 25%.
25%. That seems terrifying, doesn't it?
Yes.
Cost of goods sold increase in 1 quarter. It was actually basically 6 weeks. Nope.
Don't make me throw this.
Anyone? One more guess. We've got one in the back corner. God, that's going to be a throw. Or a walk. That's probably a sensible decision.
My guess is probably between 30 and 35%.
Good guess. Also terrifying as a number. It was 103%. Yeah. It's a massive number. Doesn't make any sense in some respects. But what we saw is a couple of things. Automotive bought up 1 year's worth of inventory in that 1 month at the end of last year, because automotive knew they were going to get hit with tariffs, and they're fairly cash rich, and they went out and they bought up all of 2025's inventory, thanks, Tara, in that 1 month. So it's a bit of a trick question, because of course it's not purely cost, it's not your general way of treating cost of goods. Cosmetics did something similar, and they're getting screwed right now. Why are they getting a hard time? It's because they overestimated demand. So the problem with cosmetics is they in Q1 actually this year, in Q1 cosmetics bought up a lot of inventory as well as the tariff conversation evolved. Demand's come off for them, so they're going to be holding inventory and they've got a problem. The one that was really interesting for me was food and beverage. So we do a lot with, like protein bar, people who kind of make and sell their own kind of custom food product. The reason why we do lots with it is because we have traceability and recall capability in the platform. So as food and beverage, you need a recall option, right? You need to be able to recall product in some cases. So we have that capability built in. And what we saw was in March, food and beverage increased their inventory stocks by 100% in 1 month. It's a rapidly growing industry, the kind of niche custom food product industry. Lots of them, we do demand forecasting in the app. So they had actually forecasted a massive increase in demand in April. So they were buying up. And the problem with buying up in food and beverage is most of the product has some form of perishable nature or shelf life. So the worst thing you want to do is buy a product with shelf life, right? If you're not getting it right. They got it right. They sold through all the way, everything. And then they bought up again. So they're expecting, that industry is expecting some pretty massive growth and has been seeing it already. Cosmetics, as I say, I think they're going in the other direction. We should do stock. We should do stock market stuff. Because we can see these industries, we can see these trends, but it's really fascinating to see. But what it really tells us is that these people are actually doing the right thing. They are looking at the data they have. They're looking at the supplies they have, and they are really managing ahead, but they're doing it in real time. These people, of course, can take advantage of opportunity. They can try and protect themselves, potentially. That can backfire sometimes, but they have these options. Of course, the problem is if you get it wrong, or if you don't do some of these things, the impacts are potentially fatal for a company. Right? It can lead to, of course, layoffs, can lead to emergency loans, cancelled orders. But ultimately, if you mismanage the inventory, the thing you're actually selling and making money off, ultimately, financial crisis is what can happen. Okay. Cosmetics brand, this is one I talked about a bit. And so One of the things that lots of people are doing, not just cosmetics, but they are actually using their inventory data to adapt to supplier cost and policy shifts. So you've got lots of different suppliers, perhaps, in different countries, which means different tariffs, different rates. And one of the things that we saw, rather unsurprisingly, was we actually saw a 50% increase in lots of suppliers at the beginning of this year in terms of cost. Could be taking advantage of the market, perhaps, of the situation, using it as an opportunity to increase prices. Could be some other things. It could be there was a drop in demand, so they had to boost price to protect. There's various things. We can't necessarily understand that. But what we can see was the result. And so I think successful companies were able to actually then manage that. And I kind of refer to it as an optionality premium. Right, it used to be a premium. We used to thought, if you have too many options, it's a disadvantage. I think today it's more of an advantage because what we saw is people would shift suppliers a lot. Right, they'll shift between lowest cost because what they're seeing is that one week supplier A may be the lower price, the next week they might be the higher price. And so having all of the information there so they can make those changes very quickly was important. Forecasting the impact. So if you know that 4 weeks' time there's going to be an increase in the tariff, you can put that into the system, you can plan ahead, you can run the numbers to say, maybe I don't want to sell this product. Maybe I should take it offline. Maybe I actually don't want to do this anymore because it's not going to make sense for me. Or, inversely, I want to sell lots of this product because the price has changed, come down. Either way, you can make decisions about what you're making and selling based on the data that's coming in. As I said, lots of case studies online. This is a bit more detail on the Raymond one. I think we kind of mostly covered this, so I will not go over it all again because you get the idea. Haha. What if you could catch issues before they hit the financials? What would you do with it? Anyone got any ideas or thoughts? Easier to clean up before they get there. That's absolutely right. That's a good one. Yeah. Any others? Any from you guys? What if you could catch issues before they hit the financials? You'd be a hero. That's what you'd be. It's the gift of time, actually. Time saving, reducing errors, and it's about trust. Right? We can do all of the fancy stuff and making the good decisions and looking ahead and all that good stuff. But in terms of the relationship you have with your client, I actually think that the gift of time and errors and trust is a big one because most business owners, particularly smaller businesses, they work with the consultants and the advisors they work with because they trust them and because they make their life easier. Busy business owners want an easier life. And so, yes, we can make good decisions. We can recommend that you don't sell this product, you do sell this product, that we find that $40,000 worth of inventory. All true things, all great things, make you look fantastic. But ultimately, you're making your clients' lives easier, giving them more time. And I think, for me, that's a really big one. And of course, this is because if you do things manually, you miss orders, you miss the calculations, inaccurate numbers. And when the systems are connected, of course, you get that live sync, which we've talked about, so you don't have any missing information. I did mention recall and traceability. Customer called Cornbread Hemp. Who knew? I'm not sure if that means the hemp has cornbread in it or cornbread has hemp in it. Either way, there's something to do with cornbread and hemp. Rather unsurprisingly, recall is important to them. And so, but one of the good things about the recall is that they actually have, again, that view that they can recall product if they need to. Obviously, they're notifying their customers, they're shipping new product, no cost to the customer. That's an expensive proposition for a business to have to do recall. So understanding the true cost impact of that decision, again, really important. We spend a lot of time with manufacturers in particular, and they really like the in-depth inventory analysis and the data they need. Anyone do fractional CFO type of work? Couple? Yeah. This is one where we found actually really good for kind of fractional CFOs. So you're maybe not in the business all the time. You're asked to kind of come in and give a specific piece of recommendation or advice. Again, really useful if you have this real-time information to hand. Bit hard to be a fractional CFO, I would think, if you have someone who's still using paper and pen, because you're just not going to have the information available to you. I'm actually going to summarize so we have a bit of time for questions. So what we've talked about today, your clients expect strategic insight, not just reporting. Inventory connects operations to financial performance. They're not separate entities. They're often viewed this way, but they're not. One should be very much connected to the other, and that will give you the proactive guidance. But you can't be proactive unless you have real-time visibility. Kind of by definition, if you don't have real time, then it means you're acting with old information, which means you're being reactive. So in order to think and look ahead, that real-time visibility is important. And of course, if you can do all of this, it makes your services much more valuable, and therefore, better loyalty, charge more, whichever your thing is. What we see if we take, again, our customer base, our customers on average, across all our customers, grow at double the rate of the market. So if you look at the SMB space in terms of revenue growth, and then you look at ours, we compare them, ours grow at double the rate. Last year, our customers had a 60% increase year on year in their average sales. 1.2 times inventory turnover, a whole bunch of other stats. But basically what we consistently see is, again, we don't see our competitors or other people's information, we only see our own. But what we see is every single time when someone implements a system like ours, they will absolutely be better off in terms of efficiency, effectiveness, and how they run their business. It can take a bit of time. Some of our customers will self-serve and be up and running online in a day. You can do that without talking to us if you want. Some people will take up to 6 weeks, depends on complexity. And so if you have them more complicated, maybe you've got some custom integrations, you're building off our API, a whole bunch of different things, then it can take longer. It is not 6 months, 12 months, which is what most people hear of or fear when it comes to inventory and ERP. It's not that type of situation. Platform's ready to go. You turn it on. Basically, it's about getting your data entry in there. And we have people that can help with that. So we are at booth 139. We're over by the wooded corner. So if any of this is interesting, if you have other questions, you can come and see us there today, tomorrow. We're very happy to talk about it. You can absolutely go on our website. There is a partner section on our website specifically to talk about accountants and bookkeepers, so you can go there. Loads of case studies. There's also resources. We've got a bunch of free resources on things like tariffs, accounting treatments, all kinds of different things. So please do have a look. You don't need to log in or anything. It's all public access. So please do take a look. And then finally, to close, we close with this. Theme of the conference, make it so. So to make it so, treating inventory as a financial priority. Start to track how inventory impacts COGS, margins, cash flow, collaborate with clients to fix data gaps that affect financial reporting. Use real-time inventory to deliver proactive advice. Adopt tools like Katana to access live inventory data. Use that visibility to spot risks, optimize cash flow, guide decisions in real time. Then finally, turning inventory insight into strategic value for your clients. Incorporate it into your conversations, your recommendations. Don't just ignore it because it's difficult or invisible, which is often what we see. So, oh yes, please do the survey. I know we are running out of time, so what we'll do is, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this one to remind you that there are more sessions at 8 o'clock, but we will just come back to any quick questions. We've got a couple in the room. If you do need to leave to get to another session, you're very welcome to, but please don't if you don't have to. Question at the back.
Well, I wasn't sure if you did anything with service industries that have a lot of stuff that they rent out.
Yep.
I have a client that has a warehouse, a ton of stuff, and they rent it out, but they don't have really a good way of tracking it. They have a system. But
We actually just released non-inventory product capability, so that would fit for service industries.
Okay.
So if you have someone who just does service, want to talk about it a bit more to figure out if it's a good fit, but someone who has like product with warranty and service contracts, there's versions of that we can do.
Yeah, because we have to know like how much it weighs when we take it someplace. We also
Yep.
have to know for our marine inland insurance, so we also have that on our asset sheet. So
It does get much harder, you're right. There are also some plugins that we use that can help with that, and then you can also customize some things. So it depends. I say in principle yes, but we'd need to look at it to make sure it fits. But we can do that. Yeah, I think there was another question. We put it into this because it's being recorded. So
I have a client who uses a third-party fulfillment.
Yep.
And they rely on them for the inventory and, well, let me go, is this anything that would be helpful for them? Because I really have doubts about what's going on.
So it depends on how they manage it, but we can certainly get that data back from them into our system, so you would get visibility on it. Probably want to have a look at the setup just to make sure it's worth it for them. But for sure, we can do that. Like we connect to those types of systems all the time. It'll become a question of where they actually want to make changes to their inventory.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Welcome. Any other questions? In that case, we've got one more, but I think as everyone's leaving, we can wrap up.